They say peace is priceless until a neon tracksuit shows up claiming jurisdiction over your fence posts. I bought my slice of Colorado heaven to escape exactly this kind of nonsense. 16 acres of solitude, a creek that sings better than any podcast, and a porch I could finally sit on without hearing someone else's leaf blower. After 20 years in uniform, I wanted silence, dirt under my nails, and the kind of privacy you can't buy in the city. I lasted exactly 3 days before a white BMW X7 rolled up my gravel road like it had a badge. Out stepped a woman who looked like a yoga ad, got into a fistfight with a gold mine, and lost. She introduced herself like she was royalty. "Monica Brait," she said, adjusting her oversized sunglasses. "President of Meadow Ridge Estates, H.O. Have you ever had someone show up on your land and act like they make the rules? Drop your story in the comments. I'm serious. What happened next turned a simple land dispute into something far messier than I expected. Now, I've been to war. I've led teams, briefed brass, and once cleared a minefield with a rake. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for a woman in $300, 0 cents spandex, trying to tell me my barn was aesthetic non-compliant. Before I could offer her some water, or maybe a map that clearly showed she had the wrong house, she launched into a speech about community standards and visual integrity. She pointed at my storage container like it had personally insulted her lineage. "We prefer neutral tones and discrete utility zones," she said, as if I was supposed to repaint my barn beige and bury my tools underground. I smiled and said politely, "Ma'am, I think you're mistaken. This ranch isn't part of your HOA. Her lips curled like I'd just said something obscene. I offered her my name, my handshake, and my boundary documents. She declined all three. "All land within the Meadow Ridge expansion zone is subject to HOA review," she said, like she was reading from some gospel of artificial turf and matching shutters. I could tell right then this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a power grab wrapped in perfume and Pilates. When she left, her tires sprayed gravel at my boots like punctuation. I didn't even bother unpacking the rest of the kitchen. Something told me this was going to be more than a casual land disagreement. This felt like the opening shot in a turf war, not over grass height, but over power, perception, and property lines. 72 hours later, I found a notice taped to my door like it was eviction day. 3 violations: fencing, storage, and unauthorized visible materials. The letter was signed in loopy cursive by Monica with an embossed seal that looked like it came from a craft store's clearance bin. It claimed I owed $100, 0 cents per day until I complied. The only thing I complied with was calling Elena Cruz, my real estate lawyer. She's half the size of a flagpole and twice as sharp. "Bring it in," she said. "We've seen this movie before, and Monica's always the villain." Turns out my land was as independent as Texas in 1836. I wasn't in their HOA. I wasn't even in their zip code boundary overlay. Elena smiled like a cat reading a canary's diary. "Let's send her a letter she won't forget." And we did, professionally worded, factually airtight, and legally bulletproof. We included boundary surveys, deeds, county plats, the whole bureaucratic buffet. It ended with, "Any further action may constitute harassment." I sent it certified, return receipt requested, and then I poured myself a glass of iced tea and waited. Because when someone shows up in a pink jacket swinging bylaws like a sword, they're not looking to negotiate, they're looking to conquer. And Monica? She hadn't even started swinging yet. 3 days after we sent the letter, I found another envelope stuck under a rock on my porch, like it was a ransom note from a bored villain. This time, Monica had upped her game. The violations were now reworded as municipal infractions, complete with references to ordinances that didn't exist. One of them cited something called the Visual Perimeter Coherence Act. I looked it up. Spoiler, it doesn't exist outside of Monica's imagination and possibly a Pinterest board. The thing about fake rules is they only work on people who don't know the real ones. Unfortunately for her, I knew the law like I knew my own boot size, and I had the paperwork to prove it. But paperwork don't stop bullies. They just push harder, until someone pushes back. And this time, I planned to push with style. I drove straight to Elena's office, the same way you'd head to the armory before a siege. Elena Cruz greeted me with the look of someone who lives for moments like this. "What now?" she asked, spinning a Mont Blanc pen between her fingers like a dagger. I dropped the new letter on her desk, and she snorted before even reading the first paragraph. "This is cartoon law," she said. "She's making up codes like she's trying to get extra credit on a HOA fan fiction." Then she grinned, the way lawyers do when they smell a countersuit brewing. "Let's remind Monica that false citation under county letterhead is a felony in 3 counties. The way she said it made it sound like we were about to drop a piano on Wile E. Coyote. I left her office feeling like I had artillery on my side, and Monica had just picked a fight with the wrong ranch. By the time I got home, a rusted Ford pickup was idling at the edge of my property. Out stepped Lyle Beck, cowboy hat, sunburned arms, and a 6-pack of Shiner Bock dangling from one hand like a peace offering. "Saw the HOA vultures circling," he said with a grin. "Figured you might need some neighborly reinforcement." We shook hands, and I instantly liked him. Lyle had the weathered skin and dry wit of a man who'd fought his share of bureaucrats. "They tried annexing my chicken coop back in 18, he said, cracking open a beer. "Claimed the rooster's crow violated the decibel threshold." He chuckled. "Told him if they could out-crow him, I'd listen." They shut up real quick. That man could have said anything after that, and I'd have invited him to Thanksgiving. That afternoon, with Lyle's encouragement, I installed a new sign on the border of my land. Big letters, bold font, "Private let property, not OA jurisdiction. Trespassers will be prosecuted." Beneath it, in smaller letters, I added, "Smile for the cameras." I bolted it into the ground with the same energy people use to hang family portraits. That sign wasn't just a warning, it was a declaration. My line in the sand. And just as I was tightening the last bolt, Monica showed up like she'd heard it through some kind of HOA bat signal. She marched right up in leopard print yoga pants and a windbreaker that looked like it lost a fight with a glitter factory. I swear she wore enough jewelry to set off NORAD. "This is intimidation," she snapped, pulling out her phone. "You're threatening the safety of our community." I didn't even look up. "No, Monica, I'm protecting the integrity of mine." She spent 10 minutes pacing the edge of my property like a cat denied entry. Her voice got louder, her language more dramatic. Hostile signage, aggressive stance, visual pollution. It was like listening to someone try to file a complaint against gravity. A few residents from her neighborhood happened to be out walking and stopped to watch. One of them squinted at the sign, then turned to Monica and asked, "I thought this place wasn't in our HOA." Monica's lips thinned like she'd sucked on a lemon rind. Her power only worked if no one questioned it. Now her illusion was cracking, and I wanted to be there when it shattered. And right then, I saw it, the shift. The look in Monica's eyes when she realized the crowd wasn't nodding, they were watching. And some of them were smiling. That moment changed everything. It wasn't just about a fence anymore, it was about exposure. Monica didn't lose battles in public, and this wasn't the victory lap she came for. She backed off, muttering about town council escalation and legal recourse. As she marched back to her BMW, Lyle raised his beer in a mock salute. "See ya at the next HOA coup," he called out. We laughed, but I knew this was. When folks like Monica lose control, they don't retreat, they regroup. She'd be back. And next time she'd come with more than empty threats. But I was ready, because if she thought I was just another guy with a truck and a toolbox, she didn't know the first thing about the man who builds fences. Not just to keep people out, but to show where you stand. It was a Wednesday morning when I learned that peace can be polluted, literally. I'd been up early setting fence posts when one of my new trail cams pinged. Motion alert, back corner of the property. I figured it was a deer or maybe Lyle's goat that wanders like it's got unfinished business. But when I pulled up the footage, there she was, Monica Brayton, tiptoeing across my boundary line like a raccoon in yoga pants. She wasn't alone. A man in khakis followed behind her, hauling what looked like old construction debris. Then they dropped it, right by the creek. One plastic drum even had a label on it, toxic. You could have set my pulse to a metronome. That creek wasn't just a pretty water feature, it was my property's lifeline. And now she'd crossed from HOA Karen to environmental criminal. This wasn't about aesthetics anymore, it was war by sabotage. I didn't scream, didn't stomp, didn't even swear. Instead, I grabbed my GoPro, walked out there, and filmed the mess exactly as they left it. Barrel, bag, and all. All right beside the cleanest spring-fed creek this county's got. Then I checked the timestamp against my security footage, clipped the video, and called Sheriff Ray Donovan. He showed up in 30 minutes flat, still holding a half-eaten sandwich. I showed him the footage, twice. The second time he stopped chewing. "I hate to say it," he muttered, "but it looks like Monica brought backup and a barrel of trouble." He rubbed his temple like it physically hurt him to be this disappointed. I handed him a printout of the stills with GPS coordinates. "She didn't just bring noise, Sheriff," I said. "She brought chemical warfare." The man sighed, shoved his sandwich back in its wrapper, and said he'd handle it. But I knew what that meant. Paperwork first, justice second. Meanwhile, Lyle showed up with a thermos of black coffee and a look that said, "Something stinks, and it ain't the beans." I filled him in while we watched the sheriff's truck disappear over the ridge. Lyle took one long look at the creek and nodded like a man who'd seen this story before. "That ain't about fences anymore," he said. "That water's the prize." I raised an eyebrow. Monica doesn't strike me as someone who appreciates nature's beauty." Snorted. "She appreciates development contracts. That spa resort they're planning over the ridge needs water. Real water, not some city tap line." That's when it clicked. She wasn't just trying to bully me. She was trying to make me fold, sell, or screw up so bad she could grab the land. The creek wasn't a coincidence. It was the crown jewel. And Monica, she wasn't just trespassing, she was scouting. Elena confirmed it the next day with that same smile she reserves for lawsuits and lost causes. "Resort development stalled," she said, laying out city permit filings like a poker hand. "They can't build without demonstrating sustainable water access. Guess who's sitting on the only year-round creek that flows straight through the proposed site?" She didn't wait for me to answer. "You. And she's hoping to poison the well, figuratively or literally." My throat tightened. "Well, that's poetic," I muttered. Elena leaned forward. "Jackson, if the city thinks you've contaminated your land, you don't just lose permits, you could lose the land itself under certain environmental enforcement." She paused. "She's not trying to fight you, she's trying to get you disqualified." My jaw clenched. It wasn't just a sabotage move, it was a trap with government teeth. And just like that, I realized I wasn't building a stable, I was digging trenches. 2 days later, I got a letter from the city. All construction on my property was to be suspended immediately. Reason? Pending investigation into potential environmental violations. I stared at the letter so long it blurred. This is how they do it, I thought. Not with bulldozers, with forms. With fear. With enough red tape to hog-tie a veteran into selling. I called Elena, who called the county. I called Lyle, who called 3 neighbors, and then I called myself back into reality. I'd spent my life handling worse under fire. I wasn't going to fold just because someone lobbed bureaucracy over my barbed wire. That night I installed more cameras, labeled everything with timestamps, and drafted a full timeline of Monica's little poison parade. I wasn't fighting dirty, I was fighting smart. And if Monica thought she could outmaneuver me, she clearly forgot the first rule of war. Never underestimate a man who builds fences for fun. The town hall smelled like lemon cleaner and judgment. Folks from Meadow Ridge Estates packed into those plastic chairs like they were lining up for communion. But this was no prayer meeting. This was a public reckoning. Sheriff Donovan stood near the back wall, arms crossed, watching the room like a bouncer at a country club riot. I sat next to Elena, who had a laptop, a briefcase, and the energy of a woman about to serve someone their own paperwork on a silver tray. Monica strutted in fashionably late, flanked by 2 HOA board members and her husband, Graham Brayton, the man with the briefcase and the 1,000-yard stare. She was dressed like she'd just stepped off the set of Real Housewives of Rural Zoning, all pearls and posture. You could feel the tension. tight as a fence cable, ready to snap. Monica took the floor with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no and wasn't about to start tonight. She slid a leather portfolio onto the council table with all the drama of a game show reveal. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to see is proof," she announced, "that Mr. Walker's property falls within the extended jurisdiction of Meadow Ridge Estates." She opened the folder to reveal a crisp map with bright new boundaries. "This signed agreement and expansion plan were filed with the city 2 years ago. Clearly, the property is governed by our HOA." She leaned back, satisfied. "I've seen less theatrical evidence in murder trials. But that smug smile? It only lasted about 12 seconds. Because Elena stood up, and she brought thunder. "Let's start with the map," Elena said calmly, clicking her remote. A projector flickered to life. "Slide 1, Monica's map. Slide 2, the county's official plat records. Notice the color shading, non-standard. Notice the font, Calibri, which Microsoft didn't bundle into legal templates until 2010. She clicked again. "Now the signature. Claimed to be from the previous owner. Problem is, the previous owner passed away a year before this was allegedly signed." The crowd murmured. Monica shifted. Graham stared at the floor like it held the last shred of his credibility. Elena went on. "The notary seal? Belongs to a license that expired 3 years prior to this date. And the paper, modern linen stock with embossed edging, not used by the county at the time of the alleged filing." She stopped. "In summary, she brought ribbons, seals, and lies. We brought receipts." Susan Parker from the town council, a woman who spoke like she signed documents with a gavel, cleared her throat. "We've reviewed the land's use boundaries. Mr. Walker's property is not and never has been within any HOA expansion zone. Furthermore, no request to redraw the boundary has been approved by the council." She folded her hands and looked squarely at Monica. "Where did you obtain these documents?" Monica didn't answer. But Graham did. "They came from my office," he said slowly, standing. "But I was not aware they'd been altered." You could feel the room inhale. "I believed my wife when she said she had consent from the previous owner. I never reviewed the notary seal, nor the signature." Monica turned to him, furious. "Graham, sit down." He didn't. His silence screamed louder than anything else in the room. The real unraveling happened right after. Susan Parker asked Monica one more time whether she'd created the documents herself. Monica launched into a word salad about clerical misunderstandings, legacy files, and intent to protect property values. It was like watching a wind-up doll recite legalese without understanding a word of it. Elena shut her laptop, stood, and said, "Intent doesn't excuse forgery." Monica's pearl necklace trembled with the rest of her. Her plan, built on fake paperwork and smug audacity, was crumbling like a poorly baked pie crust. And Graham? He packed up his briefcase and walked out, not looking back. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered he knew enough to know better. As the council adjourned the meeting to formally investigate the documents, Sheriff Donovan leaned over to me and whispered, "You could sell popcorn at these things." I cracked a smile. The crowd was dispersing, but the murmurs were growing. The spell Monica had over the HOA was breaking. Her allies looked unsure, some even embarrassed. One woman whispered to her husband, "She tried to fake a land grab?" The man nodded. "She tried to steal a crick." Truth was spilling faster than Monica could plug the holes, and just like that, she wasn't the queen of community preservation anymore. She was the face of HOA fraud. But even as her crown slid off, I knew she wouldn't go quietly. No one who brings forged maps to a town meeting folds after one round. She'd come back swinging. But now we had the crowd and the county watching. You know things are bad when the HOA secretary calls you in hushed tones like she's trying to smuggle state secrets. Rhonda Sellers left me a voicemail that sounded like it was recorded under a blanket. "Mr. Walker? I think it's time someone told the truth about Monica." That's how the floodgates cracked. Rhonda had been quiet in every meeting, the kind of woman you wouldn't notice unless the coffee ran out. But quiet people notice everything. Turns out, She'd been collecting receipts the way some folks collect stamps. Emails, meeting minutes, private memos, where Monica greenlit legal payments using HOA funds to hire a private firm, not for the HOA's benefit, but to prep the land for her husband's stalled resort deal. "I didn't sign up to be someone's cover story," Rhonda said. "I'm not going down with her poolside empire." We met Rhonda at my ranch. Me, Elena, and Lyle gathered like a prairie jury over her manila folders. Lyle flipped through one page and whistled. "Ooh, she's got more paper trails than a Vegas divorce." Rhonda had found emails where Monica promised resort executives she'd secure full water access by Q3 and referred to my creek as a soft target. Elena's eyebrows practically left her face. "This ain't just HOA misconduct. This is personal profit off public trust." Rhonda nodded. "I checked our books. Monica used HOA funds for personal legal counsel, claimed it was for zoning research." She leaned forward, voice low. "The board doesn't know. They think she's defending property values, not lining her pockets." It was the moment we realized Monica hadn't just snapped them clean in half. So we made a plan. The annual HOA meeting was 5 days away. Rhonda would quietly circulate financial records to key board members in advance. Elena prepared the legal breakdown: fraud, misappropriation, conflict of interest. Lyle brought donuts and moral support, because some wars are best fought with carbohydrates. And me, I reviewed every frame of camera footage, every barrel, every bolt of vandalism she'd delivered. We were building a case brick by brick, but Monica must have sensed the shift, because that very night, she showed up with pruning shears and a personal vendetta. Around 3 a.m., my driveway camera caught her tearing down my boundary fence like she was opening a granola bar in a rage. Hair wrapped in a silk scarf, hoodie pulled low, stomping like a banshee in Crocs. It would have been funny if it hadn't been felony number 6. The next morning, I brewed coffee, rewound the footage, and stared at the screen. There she was. Monica Brayton, HOA president, caught red-hammed on camera like it was a reality show nobody asked for. I forwarded the clip to Sheriff Donovan, who responded with a single line: "We're past warnings." He promised an officer would stop by her place later that afternoon. Lyle and I took a walk along the broken fence line. "You think she's unraveling?" he asked. I nodded. "No," I said. "She's already unraveled. We're just watching the strings fall." Lyle kicked a piece of splintered post and grinned. "She's done this before, you know. Tried it with the Ellis family up the hill. Only difference is, they didn't have you. Or Rhonda, or Elena. For the first time since this circus started, I felt something solid under my boot, not just land, momentum. By the end of the week, Rhonda had flipped 2 more board members with the documents. The whisper network inside Meadow Ridge was turning into a chorus. Questions were being asked. Loyalty was shifting. Monica's power wasn't breaking all at once. It was leaking, slow and fatal, like a cracked foundation under a shiny facade. The upcoming meeting wasn't just a formality anymore. It was the stage for a showdown. Sheriff Donovan agreed to attend, just in case things got heated. Elena printed every email, every forged map, every HOA fund misuse into labeled binders with color-coded tabs. Rhonda prepped her statement. And me? I printed still frames from Monica's late-night demolition spree, labeled them with timestamps, and added them to the slideshow, because if Monica wanted to run an empire, she should have learned how to handle a camera first. The night of the HOA meeting, the community center buzzed like a hornet's nest, full of curious retirees and suspicious spouses. People arrived holding chairs, iced teas, and opinions like they were packing for a courtroom drama. Word had spread. Rhonda's whisper campaign had grown legs, and those legs were now walking through the front door, ready to sit, stare, and maybe vote. Monica entered 15 minutes late in a bright yellow pantsuit that looked like defiance wrapped in dry cleaning. She held her chin high and her binder higher. Graham Brayton trailed behind her, pale and sweating, the kind of man who knows he's walking into a story where his last name's about to become a punchline. I took a seat up front beside Elena and Rhonda, who looked cool as a cucumber in a courtroom. We didn't come to shout, we came to show. Monica opened the meeting with the confidence of a cruise director unaware the ship had already hit the iceberg. "Thank you all for coming," she began. "We've gathered here to address ongoing disturbances caused by a non-compliant property just outside our community lines." She said my name like it tasted sour. "I believe it's in our best interest to allocate legal funds to resolve this matter swiftly." That was her first and last moment of control. Rhonda stood up, no fanfare, no raised voice, and said, "Before we vote on anything, I believe the residents deserve full transparency." She turned to me. "Mr. Walker, the floor is yours." I walked up to the projector, clicked the remote, and started the slideshow I called The Monica Files. HOA or HO, hell no. First slide, the fake map with Monica's fake expansion line. Next slide, a side-by-side of her document and the real county plat map. Then came the juicy stuff. Emails promising resort access, HOA payments disguised as legal exploration, and finally the nighttime footage of Monica tearing down my fence like she was looking for buried treasure. The room got quieter with each click. Eyebrows rose. Mouths opened. One guy in the back dropped his styrofoam coffee cup and didn't even blink. When I finished, Elena stood and laid out the charges. Misuse of HOA funds, falsified records, abuse of position, and a personal financial conflict so clear you could see your reflection in it. And then, like a cherry on top of a fraud sundae, Graham stood up. He didn't shout, he didn't defend. He simply said, "I can't ethically stand beside what's been done." He admitted to helping prepare some of the documents, but claimed he was misled, pressured, and ultimately ashamed. Monica hissed his name like she was about to breathe fire, but Graham kept talking. "If this meeting doesn't take action, the county will, and I'd rather help clean the mess than get buried in it." With that, he stepped aside, sat down, and didn't look at his wife again. Monica stood up, fists clenched, voice shaking. "You're all letting lies and outsiders destroy the community we built." But no one clapped, no one nodded. She looked around and saw what she never expected. Silence. That kind of silence that means the crown just fell off and no one's picking it up. The vote was called. Hands went up fast. Unanimous. Monica was removed as HOA president on the spot. Her access revoked, her privileges stripped, and a separate motion passed to audit every financial transaction she'd touched in the last 3 years. Within a week, the county announced an investigation into the Whitman Resort project. Without legal water access, the development was suspended indefinitely. Monica was fined for multiple code violations, and rumor had it Graham filed for divorce the same day the press release hit. And Monica? She disappeared faster than HOA dues in a bad fiscal year. Someone said she moved to a gated condo complex in another state. One with a real HOA that bans wind chimes and opinions. Fitting. Some people never learn unless the rulebook hits them on the way out. And me? I finished my stable. 3 horses now live where Monica once tried to draw imaginary borders. I host barbecues with Lyle and Rhonda every other Saturday. Neighbors drop by to talk gardening, fencing, or just to laugh at the sheer absurdity of what went down. My creek still runs, clean and quiet, feeding wildflowers and stubborn trout. No pipes, no resorts, just peace. Earned the hard way. Elena got a standing ovation at the next legal association meeting. Rhonda, they made her interim HOA president, and she rewrote the bylaws to include a clause that says, "Don't be Monica." And me, I sit on my porch, drink strong coffee, and remember one thing. You can't dam up dignity. You can't gate someone's grit. And you sure as hell can't bury a man who's standing on his own land with both feet, a full deed, and a camera pointed straight at nonsense. That night, as the stars settled over my land and the breeze rustled through the cottonwoods by the creek, I realized something. The fence I'd built wasn't just wood and wire. It was proof. Proof that if you know your boundaries, literally and figuratively, and you stand your ground with truth, not tantrums, the bullies don't win. They might try to redraw the map, twist the rules, even poison the well, but what they can't touch is the grit of a person who refuses to be intimidated. And folks, that's the lesson I hope sticks with you long after this video ends. Protect your peace like it's property, guard your rights like they're water, and never let someone with a clipboard and a title talk you out of what's already yours. Monica didn't lose because I fought harder. She lost because I fought smarter, stood taller, and had the courage to press record when it counted. If this story hit home, if you've ever dealt with a petty tyrant in a power vest or a nosy neighbor who thought your driveway was their personal runway, then let me know in the comments. I want to hear your stories. Because when we speak up, when we share, we remind the world that boundaries matter. And so does justice. And hey, if you enjoyed this tale of poetic payback and hard-earned peace, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Trust me, the next story might just make you laugh, shout, or cheer at your screen. Either way, you'll walk away knowing this channel is where justice still shows up with boots on. This has been OHA Didn't Know, the creek that couldn't be bought. I'm Cal Walker. I've got my land, my freedom, and now a stable full of truth. Catch you in the next one. Stay sharp and stay standing.